Imagine this, in a country where the government has long kept a tight grip on everything, including what people believe, something incredible is happening. Faith isn't just hanging on, it's bursting with life. Vietnam, under communist rule, has long been seen as a place where religion was tightly controlled, even discouraged. And yet, in the very heart of that system, something remarkable is happening. Catholicism is rising. From whispered prayers behind closed doors to vibrant masses, echoing across packed churches, the Catholic revival is no longer hidden. It's visible, it's growing, it's real. But how does a faith flourish under restrictions? And why are so many young people returning to the beliefs that their grandparents once had to hide? From Buddhism and evangelical Christianity to Chao Dai and Hua. Each tradition has its own journey. But today, Catholicism is becoming a powerful symbol of a greater shift. A journey from darkness to light. If you've ever seen faith come alive in unlikely places, tell us your story in the comments. If this sparked something in you, hit subscribe. More stories of unexpected faith are just around the corner. Vietnam is a beautiful country, with bustling cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, lush rice fields, and a rich history that goes back centuries. But for many years, especially after the war ended in 1975, the government saw religion as something that could challenge their control. They didn't ban it outright, but they made it hard. Churches were closed, priests were watched closely, and people had to be careful about showing their faith in public. Despite all that, Catholicism didn't fade away. In fact, it's coming back stronger than ever. Today, there are over 7 million Catholics in Vietnam, which is about 7% of the population. It's one of the biggest Catholic groups in Asia, right after the Philippines. Picture this. During Christmas, the streets around big cathedrals get so crowded with people praying that they have to close them off to traffic. Processions honoring Mary wind through villages with candles flickering, incense rising, and songs filling the air. Young folks are joining religious orders in bigger numbers, and youth groups are full of energy, creating events and sharing their beliefs creatively. This isn't just a quiet comeback, it's vibrant and full of life. But to understand how we got here, we need to look back at the tough road that led to this moment. The story starts way back in the 1500s, when Portuguese missionaries first brought Catholicism to Vietnam. At that time, the country was divided into kingdoms, and the faith spread slowly among the people. It appealed to many because it offered hope, community, and a sense of purpose in a world full of uncertainty. By the 1600s, there were already thousands of believers building small churches and living out their faith in daily life. However, as the number grew, so did the worries of the rulers. They saw this new belief as something foreign, tied to European powers that might want to influence or even take over. Emperors started to crack down, viewing Catholics as a threat to their authority because the faith taught loyalty to God above all else. This led to waves of persecution that lasted for centuries. In the 1700s and 1800s, things got really bad. Priests were arrested and declared enemies of the state. Local people who converted were called traitors and faced terrible punishments. Soldiers would raid villages, smashing statues and burning homes. Believers were given a stark choice: give up their faith or face death. Many chose to stand firm, enduring brutal tortures like being beaten, starved, or worse. Executions were public to scare others, methods like drowning, burying alive, or slow killings that I won't describe in detail because they're so harsh. Yet, in the face of all this horror, the faith didn't break. Instead, it grew deeper roots. These early martyrs became heroes in the eyes of the community. Their stories were passed down through families like precious treasures. They showed that true belief isn't about power or safety. It's about holding on to what you know is right, even when everything says to let go. Their sacrifice laid the foundation for the strong Catholic presence we see today. Fast forward to the 20th century, and Vietnam faced even more challenges. The country was torn apart by wars, first against colonial powers, then the big conflict that divided North and South. When the communists took control of the whole nation in 1975, they brought a new set of rules. Religion was seen as old-fashioned, something that could divide people or distract from building a new society. The government didn't want any group that might have its own leaders or ideas. So they took over churches, turning some into warehouses or offices. Seminaries where priests trained were shut down, cutting off the supply of new clergy. Schools, run by Catholics, which had been some of the best in the country, were handed over to the state or closed entirely. Priests and nuns were put under watch, and some were sent to camps for re-education, where they faced hard labor and pressure to change their views. Being openly Catholic could cost you your job, your place in school, or even your freedom. Families had to hide their practices, praying quietly at home, keeping Bibles out of sight, and teaching kids about the faith through stories told in whispers. Sacraments like baptism or communion happened in secret, maybe in a back room or out in the fields at night. It was a time of real fear, but also incredible strength. People found ways to keep the flame alive, passing on traditions from grandparents to grandchildren. They knew that their faith was more than just rituals. It was a lifeline, a source of comfort in dark times. This underground period lasted for decades, but it forged a community that was resilient and deeply committed. One story that stands out from this era is that of Archbishop Francis Xavier Nguyen Van Thuan. He was appointed to lead the church in Saigon right around the time the city fell in 1975, just days later. The authorities arrested him without any clear charges. His crime was simply being a faithful leader when the new government didn't trust anyone connected to religion. He spent 13 years in prison, 9 of them in solitary confinement. No visitors, no books, just endless isolation. But even in that loneliness, he didn't lose hope. He turned tiny bits of bread and drops of wine, smuggled in his medicine, into the Eucharist, celebrating Mass right there in his cell. He wrote reflections on scraps of paper, thoughts about faith and hope that were secretly passed out and later became a book called The Road of Hope. What's amazing is how he treated his guards with kindness and prayers, even forgiving them. Some were touched by his example and started to question their own views. When he was finally released in 1988, he became a symbol of endurance for Catholics everywhere. His life shows how one person's quiet strength can inspire a whole nation. Stories like his remind us that thriving isn't always about big crowds or fancy buildings. Sometimes it's about holding on in the toughest spots. By the 1990s, things started to shift. The government, facing pressure from inside the country and from the world watching, began to ease up a bit. They realized that completely stamping out religion wasn't working and might even cause more problems. Churches were allowed to reopen, though still with rules. Seminaries started accepting students again, and public gatherings became possible without as much fear. This was like a breath of fresh air after years of holding back. Pilgrimages to sacred sites, like the shrine of Our Lady of Lavang, drew huge crowds of hundreds of thousands walking miles, some barefoot, carrying candles and singing hymns. This site has a special place in Vietnamese Catholic hearts because legend says Mary appeared there during a time of persecution in the 1700s, offering protection. Today, these events are joyful celebrations, with families coming together, sharing food, and praying for their needs. Festivals that were once banned now light up the streets with lanterns, music, and dances. The church isn't just reopening doors, it's rebuilding communities. And the numbers tell the story. Catholicism has grown to about 7.4% of the population, with more than 7 million people actively involved. This revival comes from the ground up, from people who never gave up, even when it was hard. What's really exciting is how young people are at the heart of this growth. In many parts of the world, you hear about youth drifting away from faith, but in Vietnam, it's the opposite. Teenagers and young adults are stepping up, full of passion and ideas. They organize retreats where they pray, sing, and talk about life through the lens of their beliefs. In cities like Saigon or Hue, you might walk into a church hall and see kids with guitars leading worship nights, their voices echoing with joy. They're using social media to share stories, making videos about saints, designing posts about Bible verses, or starting online groups for prayer. In rural areas, youth lead charity work, helping poor families or building homes in remote villages. Seminaries are seeing more applicants than ever, both men wanting to be priests and women joining religious orders. What drives them? Many say it's the stories from their families, the grandparents who hid crosses during tough times, the parents who taught them prayers in secret. They've seen the cost of faith and decided it's worth it. In a fast-changing world where technology and new ideas pull in all directions, these young Catholics find stability and purpose in their traditions. They're not forced into it. They choose it because it feels real and alive. This energy is proof that the church in Vietnam isn't just hanging on. It's moving forward with fresh momentum. Another big piece of this thriving picture is the improving relationship between Vietnam and the Vatican. For a long time after 1975, there was little contact. The government was wary of any outside influence, so appointing bishops or holding big events needed their approval, which wasn't always easy. But in recent years, things have warmed up. For the first time ever, there's a permanent representative from the Vatican living in Vietnam, helping bridge the gap. This means better communication, more freedom for church leaders, and events that can happen without as many hurdles. Government officials even show up at some religious celebrations now, standing with the people in a sign of respect. There are still rules and occasional tensions, but it's a huge step. This connection lets Vietnamese Catholics feel part of the bigger global church family. They can join international gatherings, share ideas with believers from other countries, and get support when needed. It's like opening a door that was closed for too long, letting in light and fresh air. This diplomatic progress shows that change is possible, even after years of mistrust, and it's helping the faith grow in healthy ways. But let's not forget the everyday people who make this all real. Beyond the big events and leaders, it's the ordinary folks who keep the faith thriving. Think of a mother in a small village, gathering her kids around a candle at night to teach them about Jesus, drawing simple crosses and telling stories from memory because books were once hard to get. Or a father who works long hours but still finds time to pray the rosary with his family, passing on the habits he learned from his own parents. Elderly priests pedaled bicycles over bumpy roads to visit remote homes, bringing communion to those who can't travel. In city apartments, young professionals meet in small groups to discuss their faith, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. These aren't famous names. They're the backbone of the community. Their devotion is quiet but powerful, showing up for Mass every week, helping neighbors in need, living with kindness, even when times are tough. In hospitals, Catholics volunteer to care for the sick. In schools, they teach values alongside lessons. This grassroots level is where the thriving happens most deeply. It's not about headlines. It's about hearts changed one at a time. People remind us that faith is lived out in the simple things, day by day, and that's what makes it last now. Zooming out, what can the rest of us learn from how Catholicism is thriving in Vietnam? In places where faith is easy, churches open freely, books everywhere, no fear of speaking up, it's tempting to take it for granted. But seeing what Vietnamese Catholics have gone through challenges us to ask, are we making the most of our freedoms? Do we hold our beliefs with the same grip? Or have they become just a habit? Their story shows that real faith grows in hard soil, strengthened by trials. It calls us to be more grateful, more active, more willing to step out. Maybe start with prayer, not as a quick thing, but as a real conversation with God, lifting up those facing tough times around the world, then live it out boldly. Say grace before meals in public, offer help to someone hurting, share a kind word that points to hope. And don't keep these stories to yourself. Tell friends, post about it, spark conversations in your group. Vietnam's Catholics prove that no matter the obstacles, faith can flourish if we nurture it. It's a wake-up call to embrace what matters, with courage and joy. As we wrap this up, think about how far we've come from hidden prayers to open celebrations, from persecution to revival. The journey of Catholicism in Vietnam is a testament to an unbreakable spirit. If this touched you, hit that like button, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and drop a comment below. What's one thing you'll do differently after hearing this? Share it with someone who needs encouragement. Thanks for watching all the way. Your time means a lot. Till next time, keep the faith alive.